3 years ago, when I first started making music, I always felt like an imposter because I used samples all the time. The way that I got into making music was through samples in particular and through old records and actually going to the store and digging in the crates, so to speak. And especially watching shows like Rhythm Roulette and other places where people were literally using samples and making music from it. That's what inspired me to start in the first place. But then as I got into it, I heard a lot of other producers talking about how it's not really authentic to use samples because you're not the one producing all of the music. So the way that they would put it is if I'm not playing guitar and I'm not playing the piano on this track and I'm only maybe putting down drums over a chopped up sample that I made, then I'm not a real producer. And that's something that I kind of heard a lot in the community, and it made me feel like, again, an imposter, and that I didn't actually belong, and that I wasn't a real producer by any means. So the way that I tried to overcome this was to learn how to play instruments, and in particular, I started off with the guitar because I knew I had a friend already who would send me stuff of him playing guitar, and I could just ask him to teach me. So what he started to do was come over every single week, and he would teach me different chords and different song structures to play on the guitar. And I remember it even took me a couple of weeks to figure out how to play the bar chord actually, and I couldn't get my actual fingers to wrap around all of the strings. And again, the same thing, even with piano in particular, I didn't learn as much on that, but I learned all of the keys, I learned all of the chords and how to build them. I never learned how to fluently play, but I could actually build out a MIDI that sounded good to me because I knew some of the theory behind it now at least. But over time, what I started to realize was that if I played the chords on the guitar versus if my friend who was an actual guitar player played the chords on guitar, it sounded completely different. He sounded so much better than I did. He sounded so much more fluent on the piece of gear than I did. And because of that, anytime we went to go record anything, he would play guitar and I would play drums. And so what I realized is it's not inauthentic if you aren't the one making the samples. It's actually inauthentic to not be using samples for your weaknesses in particular. So in this case, if I try to learn how to play guitar, that makes me more of an imposter than if I just lean into my strength, which is already playing the drums and learning how to do that. I have to literally go out of my way and force myself to do this thing that I don't necessarily enjoy, which was playing the guitar in this case. And yeah, I can learn it and actually play the chords and actually make up a song and do all of these things. But would I rather have somebody who actually knows how to do that, just take that role instead and actually use their mastery in that, while I can then continue to learn the drums and become a master at those things instead, and then use our combined abilities so this way there's no weak link in the chain when we're producing music. And that is why it's okay to outsource your weaknesses. It makes the entire track as a whole better when you aren't trying to force yourself to do those things. Yes, you do want to try to bring up your overall stats in general, but what you really want to do is make sure that the overall track and what the audience wants from that track actually sounds good and that you enjoy making it. Because if there's a lot of friction and you don't enjoy, for example, playing the guitar, when that part of the song comes up, you're probably going to close your laptop and put it down and say you're going to come back to it another day, and you continue to procrastinate and never actually take action on it. And one example of somebody who doesn't play every single instrument themselves and will tell you himself that he doesn't know everything is Rick Rubin, and here's a clip to prove it.
Do you play instruments?
Barely.
Do you know how to work a soundboard?
No. I have no technical ability, and I know nothing about music.
So what are you being paid for?
The confidence that I have in my taste and my ability to express what I feel has proven helpful for artists.
And so if Rick Rubin doesn't even know how to produce songs and people really love the music that he's making, why should anybody else in particular need to? And the whole point that I'm trying to make here is that let's say everybody's out at the club or everybody's out at a party and a Rick Rubin song comes on. People don't start whispering to each other, hey, Rick Rubin didn't play the keys on this. Hey, Rick Rubin didn't play the guitar on this. Oh, he didn't mix or master this with his own hands. People just start dancing to the music. They could care less who produced it. They could care less about any of that stuff. They just care about how it makes them feel in that particular moment. And that's why that's the most important thing. And I think Rick Rubin even says that himself. It's that feeling that comes from the music. and what that gives for not only yourself, but also for the audience who's going to hear it on the other side. Another problem that I thought I had with sampling is that we're all using the exact same sounds. Everybody's downloading the same packs, going to the same subreddits, using the same YouTube channels or Splice or Tracklib, whatever it happens to be. But the thing is, we've been using the same sounds more or less since the beginning of this entire era of music. And an example of this is that there's all these drum breaks that keep getting recycled from the 90s era, especially things like the Amen break, or also even now in trap music, there's things like the Spins 808 that every single producer uses. And it doesn't necessarily matter if we all have the same sounds. It's about how you use those sounds in particular. Another example of this would be something like Kenny Beats' beat challenges, where every single time the entire group of producers uses the exact same sample, and yet somehow miraculously on the other side, they all produce completely different sounding music. It's not about the sample source. It's about how they actually use the sample itself and the way that they invoke their unique sound into that sample. And my last example for this is my own drum challenges, where people are downloading the exact same pack as well, and yet they all produce their own personalized music from it. They all produce what I think of as really cool stuff, and sometimes I can't even fully recognize the sounds that I make because they used it in such a unique way that it makes it so different than the way that I had pictured it in my head it's sounding. So now this whole idea though of using sample packs in general and not being scared of using the same packs as other people, what you can start to do is rely on them for proven sounds and basically proven ideas that will resonate with the audience. Again, going back to something like the Amen break or the Spins 808, we already know that these sounds sound good, so you can use them in your sound selection. So this way it becomes easier to make better quality tracks as a whole. You can also learn to start appropriately stealing like an artist, and this comes from somebody named Austin Kleon, and there's a clip of him that I really like, which I'll put up here.
The big idea of the book was that there's honor amongst thieves. There's a right way to steal and there's a wrong way to steal. The great artist steals in this very particular way. You hear that phrase like, oh, imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery. It's like, no, it's not. Anyone who's ever been imitated knows that is not how it feels when you're being imitated, right? It does not feel flattering whatsoever. What's flattering is transformation.
So now, as Austin Kleon states, there's a right way to steal like an artist and there's a wrong way to steal like an artist. And what we're trying to do is figure out what's appropriate for us and what's good for us. And so for some people, this is going to be buying packs where you give a royalty back to the artist because they worked really hard and it's worth it to pay them back. But for some people, they're also going to want royalty-free sample packs. Both routes are perfectly fair to take, but all you want to do is, again, pick what you think is appropriate for yourself and then do that thing. Personally, I believe strongly in royalty-free packs, which is why all of my packs are royalty-free. Again, I'm going to plug the new sample pack that I just dropped, the Dreams pack here, because I'm sponsoring myself with these videos. But I like to think that there's all of these sites where you can actually get free packs from. Again, other than myself, you can go to Cymatics in particular. I really enjoy their free stuff. I think they have a host of free packs that are awesome material. If you want other paid places that you can go, I think Splice in particular has a subscription service, but they provide you a really wide array of samples that you can choose from. So again, whether you're going with a paid option or whether you're going with free options, I think there's so many samples out there for you to choose from. And again, what we want to do is choose it and use it in an appropriate way where we're stealing like an artist and we're not doing it to degrade that original material. We're doing it to enhance it in a way and make it something that's unique to what we're going to be producing.